You don't wake up lazy. You wake up already tired, not in your body, but in your mind. The invisible exhaustion of a brain forced to carry too much for too long. At the deepest level, this is not about productivity. It's about a nervous system that learned early that rest was unsafe, slowness was punished, and mental alertness was the price of survival. What once protected you is now silently burning you out. Part 1. High-impact hook and core paradox. You wake up with a list already forming in your head. Things you should do. Things you meant to do. Things you're already behind on. Before your feet touch the floor, your mind is racing, not with excitement, but with pressure. A low-grade panic disguised as planning. And yet, you don't move. You sit there, scrolling, staring, avoiding, and somewhere deep inside, a familiar voice whispers, "What's wrong with me? Why am I like this? Why can't I just do what everyone else seems to do so easily?" So you call yourself lazy. But laziness doesn't feel like this. Laziness doesn't ache. It doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel like wanting everything and having energy for nothing. What you're experiencing is something far quieter and far more complex. It's mental saturation, cognitive overload. A brain that has been switched on for so long, it no longer remembers how to power down. Here's the paradox no one talks about. The part of you that looks like laziness is actually the part that's been trying to survive. The same mental hyper-alertness that once kept you safe is now the very thing draining you. And until you understand that, you'll keep fighting yourself instead of listening to what your mind has been begging you to hear. Part 2. Definition and psychological authority. Your brain was never designed for this. It evolved to respond to immediate threats, predators, hunger, danger, and then return to rest. Stress was meant to be temporary. Alertness was meant to be brief. But modern life doesn't end stress. It stacks it. Psychology calls this cognitive overload, a state where incoming demands exceed the brain's processing capacity. But the overload didn't start with emails or notifications. Those were just the final straw. For many people, the roots go much deeper. Hypervigilance, a nervous system conditioned to stay alert at all times, often begins in environments where unpredictability was normal. When emotional safety wasn't guaranteed, your brain learned to scan constantly. For danger, for disappointment, for shifts in mood. Then there's the emotional neglect schema, not the trauma of what happened, but the trauma of what didn't. No space to rest emotionally. No permission to be unproductive without consequence. No reassurance that you were enough without effort. Your brain adapted. It became efficient, fast, always thinking ahead. Over time, the default mode network, the part of the brain responsible for self-reflection and internal dialogue, became overactive. Instead of resting, it loops, replays, analyzes. Thinking becomes a full-time job. And eventually, the nervous system reaches a breaking point. Not dramatically, but quietly. Motivation doesn't disappear. It gets shut down. Because from the brain's perspective, stopping is safer than pushing forward into more overwhelm. Part 3. Emotional cost and philosophical weight. There is a specific kind of grief that comes with this state. It's not the grief of losing something visible. It's the grief of losing yourself in small, daily moments. You grieve the version of you who used to feel excited, who could begin things without dread, who didn't need 3 hours of mental negotiation just to start. Carl Jung once said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. But the greatest burden an adult can carry is the unlived life of their own nervous system." Always braced, always tense, always preparing. You sacrifice authenticity for efficiency, rest for readiness, presence for control. And beneath it all is a quiet fear, rarely spoken, often unconscious. If I stop, everything will fall apart. If I rest, I'll be judged. If I slow down, I'll be left behind. So even rest becomes work. Even silence feels loud. Even peace feels unfamiliar. This is invisible grief, mourning a life that could have been softer. Part 4. Adult manifestation and the unlearning process. This doesn't stay in your head. It shapes your life. You might notice it in your relationships. You overthink conversations, replay interactions, struggle to relax even with people you love. In your career, you procrastinate not because you don't care, but because caring costs too much. Perfectionism masks exhaustion. Burnout feels personal instead of systemic. In self-worth, you measure your value by output. Stillness feels like failure. Rest feels undeserved. In boundaries, you say yes when your body says no. You absorb other people's stress as if it were your own. In emotional regulation, small tasks feel overwhelming. Minor setbacks drain you disproportionately. In identity, you don't know who you are outside of trying, outside of coping, outside of holding it together. These are not personality traits. They are survival strategies that overstayed their welcome. And the first step toward healing isn't changing them. It's witnessing them without judgment. Because what you resist persists. But what you understand begins to soften. Part 5. Healing, Conclusion, and Affirmation. Healing does not mean becoming more productive. It means becoming more present. It means teaching your nervous system that safety is not something you earn. It's something you're allowed to feel. This is where inner child reparenting begins. Giving yourself permission to rest without justification. To move slowly without guilt. This is where shadow work matters. Meeting the part of you that equates worth with effort, and asking where it learned that. This is where nervous system regulation becomes revolutionary. Breath, stillness, reducing stimulation not as discipline, but as kindness. Choosing softness over survival mode is not weakness. It's repair. As philosopher Byung-Chul Han wrote, burnout is not the result of too much work, but too much pressure to perform. You were never lazy. You were overloaded in a world that confused constant output with value. The goal is not to be fixed. The goal is to become whole. If this resonated, share it with someone who needs permission to rest. And if you're still here, still listening, that tells me something important. You're not giving up. You're waking up. Part 6. The system that profits from your exhaustion. There is something important you need to understand, and no one tells you this early enough. Your overload did not happen in a vacuum. It happened inside a system that quietly benefits from your exhaustion. A system that rewards constant availability, that monetizes attention, that equates worth with speed, output, and visibility. You are not failing modern life. Modern life is overstimulating the human nervous system beyond its natural limits. Your brain is asked to decide faster, respond quicker, consume more, compare endlessly. And when you inevitably slow down, the system offers you a convenient lie. You're lazy. Because if the problem is personal, then the system never has to change. But psychology tells us something sobering. A chronically overloaded brain cannot distinguish between external pressure and internal threat. Your nervous system does not know the difference between a tiger, an inbox, a social expectation, a deadline tied to your identity. It only knows urgency, so it stays activated, day after day, year after year. This is why rest feels unsafe, why silence feels uncomfortable, why doing nothing makes you restless instead of relaxed. Your body has learned that stillness equals vulnerability. And that belief, more than laziness, more than motivation, is what keeps you trapped. The philosopher Herbert Marcuse warned of a society where people are comfortably numb, mistaking exhaustion for normality. When burnout becomes the baseline, health starts to feel like rebellion. Part 7. Redefining success, rest, and who you are becoming. Here is the quiet truth waiting beneath all of this. You don't need to become more disciplined. You don't need to optimize yourself further. You don't need to earn rest through suffering. You need to redefine success at the level of your nervous system. Success is not how much you can carry. It's how little you need to in order to feel safe. Success is not constant movement. It's the ability to pause without fear. This is where the real transformation begins. You begin to notice when your body tightens. You start honoring signals instead of overriding them. You choose fewer inputs, fewer obligations, fewer self-attacks. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What happened that made my brain believe this pace was necessary?" That question changes everything. Because the moment you stop seeing yourself as defective, you start seeing yourself as adapted. Adapted to pressure, adapted to chaos, adapted to survival. And now, slowly, you are learning something new. How to live without bracing. How to exist without earning your right to rest. How to let your mind exhale. This is not the end of effort. It's the end of cruelty toward yourself. And if there's one thing to carry with you after this video, let it be this. You are not lazy. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are a human nervous system asking for a different rhythm. And when you finally listen, not with shame, but with compassion, that is where healing actually begins.